Because the mentorship was such a safe place for me, therefore it becomes safe to be vulnerable. And I think I needed to be vulnerable in order to acknowledge my part in my illness. But that's not about blame or fault of me. It's about acknowledging that I needed to do things differently and learning and becoming to understand that it was about my self-value was massive for me, because what I realize is that everything I've ever done, I think through my life, has always been about where I sat my value. So one of the things that freaked me out was we talk about people being perfectionists, and that's quite common through CFS. I'm not particularly a perfectionist, but what I do have is incredibly high standards of myself, or did. And that was in itself a relentless kind of push to getting it right. But then the added bonus of never getting it right because I wasn't a perfectionist, so therefore beating myself up because I wasn't good enough. So the mindset part of the CFS mentorship, it was huge for me because it made it okay for me to say, actually, no, I'm not going to do that because it's okay. And having that trust in myself to know what's right with the physical boundary stuff and the physical baseline stuff. And one of the things I learned from you is that losing that need to be perfect, because almost there was a part of me that tried to be perfect in my recovery. I wanted to get everything right all the time.
That was getting in the way of your recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. It really was. I could still sit in those mentorship groups now. I absolutely loved every minute of those 2 years. It was like the biggest trust exercise I could give myself, and know that I've got all my fundamentals and I still touch base, and it's really a gift. It was a gift. My journey is to progress still. I can't just be a bull in a china shop with my family because they've been through this illness with me. So it's about kind of being gentle with their recovery through it too.
Wow, that's fascinating. I've never heard, sorry, I need to interrupt. I've never heard anyone say that. That's really fascinating.
My husband has been massively supportive, and it's been tough because he lost me for a while. And the Charlie that is here now is not necessarily the same Charlie that was here pre-illness. So there are some adjustments to make. You know, my values have changed a little bit because they needed to, because actually I wasn't looking after myself. So it's still a work in progress, but it's about acknowledging his part in that, really, and my kids, because they were there. And I suppose the flip side of this is, and the thing that I was frightened about, but actually has worked out really well. And I hope they agree with me, because I might just be my fantasy. But I think that as I stick to my values and I actually practice what I preach, I think that's something that they see. It becomes kind of better for them, if you like, because they can see that perhaps the way that I used to manage my life in the olden days isn't perhaps the best way forward. I don't want any of my kids to run themselves into the ground to please everybody all of the time and end up in a situation where they don't have any joy in their life, or they resent things because they've said yes to something that actually they weren't comfortable with. So it's an ongoing process, and luckily it's not perfect. And I'm much better at listening to my body and my needs and not getting stressed.
What an example you're setting. Absolutely incredible for those people close to you to have someone like you, a role model like you, to live by your values and to show them what looking after yourself actually looks like, not just on a physical level though, actually on a soul level and on a purpose-driven level. It's not so much just the people that we're working with, but it's their families. Like, it's the impact that you're having on your family and the ripple effect that then has in their closest proximity. That's what matters. That's the gold. That's the ripple effect that changes the world. And it might seem small, like it's an individual thing, but it's not. Your husband is a better man because of you. And how special to have that connection, even though that you are different to what he married all those years ago. But it's so special for you to have that love and the capacity to realize that, wow, like I've really changed and I'm going to help him through that process too. Like, how special is that, and how bonding can that be? And for you to allow yourself to change, but that also allows him to become more of who he truly is too. And I know it sounds maybe a bit too wacky and spiritual for some of you, but that's what this is about. And it's becoming more of who you are and being true to yourself. And that has a ripple effect in the world so big that we will never really truly know the difference that it makes.